not need one. One road.
521.
Sorry, a card for a parking problem.
Or in your 23.
Yes, that's more over the 28 from my truck when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Line truck, white Lincoln X-ray 985 should come back up next.
So you had 2000 Patrick Spalding.
10-4. Being from lower than something like that, I might not be leaving a note. My vehicle is not even verify it.
Rockingham 505. Engine vandalism case for Athens. Complainant, soon to be ex, slashed her tires and has made threatening comments to her. She's concerned he might return.
Forgive this at 32.
10-4. 532, you're assigned to a vandalism case in Athens. Did you copy the 505?
Yeah, 4. No, 3 at Depot Street. Truck boy entering class.
7435.
10-4.
10-4.
Can you go 643 again?
143.
You go with that 43 you had. I didn't hear any, but that just looks like we do.
10-4, I just wanted to know if you should be back 76 to Cabana Circle or to the subject's address.
Yeah, I'll be 23 back on that found property case, and I'll be 76 to the Williams Road address to see if I can find the alert.
10-4. 449 1120.
Now 449 1121, thank you.
10-4.
Code 4. Alert.
Rockingham 535.
Yeah, that was great color.
535.
Should be. You guys know if our woman got tucked into the house. I'll fly down the alley.
Caller is now been able to close the front door. She is now pounding on the door,
trying to get in still. About 5 floor one dark here. Got tie-dye shirt on. Number 21 is on.
Switch is on, here comes the throttle. Circuit breakers in. We have separation boosted. Inboard and outboard are on. Coming forward with the side stick. Looks good. I've got a blowout. Neighbor 3. Introduce to 0. Exit out. I can't hold out to 2. Correction. Alpha 4 is off. Threat flight is emergency. Flight call. I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking.
Hey guys, happy to see you all. This was kind of an unplanned show. We'll try to make it kind of quick tonight, but we're going to go over, we have these potentially explosive hearing tomorrow. It's going to be a long day. We'll be streaming it here too, of course, but you won't see me except maybe during the breaks. So we'll just stream it for everybody's benefit. Right now, Sean is on live on the other channel, and he's talking about the same thing that he said to me the other night. What hill will I die on? He knows what hill he's going to die on. But isn't that the problem? I kind of feel bad for Sean a lot because I think inside there is a good man. I feel like he's trapped. I feel like he got on this hill this summer. He's left himself no way out. And now he's forced to argue for crazier and crazier things, which is what's been going on. We did a little bit of that the other night, and he did have a response to it. But like I said, I do think that inside there is a decent human being that wants to be heroic, wants to do the right thing for people. But this isn't a game. These are innocent people that are being smeared as accomplices to murder. So we'll get into it. What I want to go over tonight, most importantly, about tomorrow's hearing, we'll give you some ideas about what might be going on in the hearing. It's a motion to dismiss, and I believe also a motion to continue. And the primary thing that they'll be talking about will be the federal information, whatever was uncovered by the federal investigation that has now been handed over to both sides. Oh, I want to, before I go on to that too, I think it was Joey Diego. Let me just glance back through the chat. Not sure I see it, but I thought Joey mentioned something about the grand jury continuing. Comment seems to be, oh, there it is. Some people on Twitter are saying that people are still getting called for the grand jury. Now, I don't know. I don't have any information on that. I think it's worth, we're all just speculating, right? Supposedly Turtle Boy said that this morning. It's not impossible, but it's some things to keep in mind is that Yannetti's statement back in January about the conference call that he had with the feds from the U.S. Attorney's Office, in which it was a conference call in which the DA's office was on. He said, and I don't have the quote in front of me, but something to the effect of, we're going to get all of the information from the feds, everything that they've developed, inculpatory, exculpatory, whatever, in regards to the Karen Reed aspect of the case. And the way he worded it implied that the Karen Reed case was part of a broader investigation, probably into corruption or something like that. So if there are still ongoing grand jury testimony related to this investigation, is it related to Karen Reed or is it related to something completely else? Something, for instance, connected to Norfolk County, could be the Birdsmore case, could be anything. We don't know, right? That's the thing with the feds that, you saw all summer and into November, the DA's office sent numerous messages and they couldn't even get replies. So the feds like to be mysterious, right? They like to not tell you what they're doing. So it's a little disturbing. You wonder sometimes if they understand that the laws apply to them too. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. I would be surprised if they're still doing grand jury testimony related to the Karen Reed case. They knew this trial was coming. It was originally scheduled for March. They've known this all along, so there's no reason to not have scheduled anything earlier. Now, of course, unless something was more recently uncovered, but that doesn't seem very likely. So we'll see tomorrow. There could be some bombshells. Now, maybe the feds will maybe we'll find out that it's still ongoing. We might find out from one side or the other. Feds made clear according to Judge Canone in the last hearing, that pretty much either side can discuss anything as long as it's relevant. But they didn't give any parameters for what's relevant. So that'll be up to the judge. If somebody on either side says something that she determines is not relevant, they can stop it. But she can stop it. So pretty much anything goes is what she said, right? So anything the feds handed over relative to this investigation is fair game tomorrow. So I would think that if there's any information, I don't know. I don't know. Would obviously with the feds, they're going to hand over what they have, so they're not going to hand over a little footnote saying, "By the way, we're still working." I don't know. I mean, so unless there's something that comes over from the U.S. Attorney's Office directly to the judge, so it's a mystery. We don't really know. One of the things that I want to point out as we watch tomorrow, and I think it's really important to get this across now, is that I want people to pay attention to the things that don't get said tomorrow, just as much as the things that do get said. Because a lot of theories have been out there about this conspiracy, supposed went on the House. Now, almost, so it's been almost a year now. It's been 11 months since this conspiracy theory's been out there. And most of the social media platforms are 100% free, Karen Read. The two Facebook groups that people spend a lot of time in are 100% free, Karen Read. So most of the information is coming from that side, and it's very influential. But so what could the feds have found? And if they don't mention any of that tomorrow, doesn't that tell us something? So for instance, if the feds manage to get access to, and I have no idea what the feds have, okay, so I'm just speculating here, but based on what we knew they were looking for, based on the theory, right? So if the feds manage to get access to a period of, say, Michael Proctor's communications, and there's no communication between him and the Alberts or the McCabe's, doesn't that mean something? I mean, we've been told that they're very tight. And according to the state, they're not at all. They really don't. They're not even aware of each other. I think it was Michael Proctor's sister is connected to Chris Albert's sister or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is. It doesn't even matter. It's some 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon kind of thing. There's not, despite all the stuff that's out there in social media, no pictures, no communications or pictures have emerged except that shows any of these people together, except for a picture from a wedding 10 years ago. And you know how it is when you go to a wedding, there's all kinds of people there that most of the people there, you have no idea who they are, and you won't see them ever again unless you bump into them at another wedding. Even relatives do you have. So it would be interesting. Now, maybe maybe we'll find out tomorrow there were communications between Michael Proctor and the Albert family and the McCabe's. Maybe they go bowling together every Thursday, and they've been doing it for years, and they stopped the night, the week before the murder. I don't know, right? So something like that could come out. But if no one mentions any communications between Michael and these people, doesn't that tell you something? Doesn't that mean something, since people have been saying for almost a year now how tight they are? Because you remember, Michael Proctor didn't, according to the theory, he didn't just look the other way while something went on. They're accusing him of planting evidence in the snowbank in a very risky way, because you're talking about the only time it could have been planted, as we've said many times, would have been sometime after 5. So you're talking almost 12 hours after John was killed. That's a long time. Well, actually even longer, because be 16 hours after John was struck. So after the crime was committed. So 16 hours later is a long time for Karen's SUV to show up somewhere where it gets filmed or somebody takes a picture of it. Karen takes a picture of it when it goes home, or there's a clear video from the Ring video or something like that. So you're taking an enormous risk to go and tamper with that vehicle 16 hours later and plant that at a murder scene, at a scene where there are numerous troopers already working the scene, getting ready to dig for evidence and set up their lights, where there's a news crew there. So you've got to establish a pretty firm motive here. And if you don't show some close degree of communication or friendship between these people, then the theory becomes that much more absurd. And in my view, it's already pretty absurd, but it becomes more absurd. So it's something to keep in mind. If you don't hear that, now maybe we will hear that tomorrow. Like I said, I don't know. Another thing to think about, similar to that, is if we don't hear that the feds found some communication between the supposed conspirators and Michael Proctor that morning, or Trooper Buchanan that morning. All right. So they were, I don't know what time they were called in, but they were called in late in the morning on a blizzard to come in and handle this homicide. The homicide officially transferred to them the moment John died, but there's a bureaucracy involved, and it's not like these guys were planning on a murder for the next day. So, you know, and there's a blizzard going on, a very serious blizzard, the biggest blizzard we've had probably in about 10 years was going on at that particular moment. So if there's no communication to these troopers from the conspirators, how is it exactly that they were informing them that they had to help rig the case? And how would Proctor or Buchanan even know what they were going into if somebody didn't call them and tell them? So I'm just assuming that the feds got those communications. I don't really know that, but because what else were they doing? They were certainly talking to everybody, right? Doesn't seem to be anything explosive, or I think we would have heard about it by now. But certainly we're going to hear tomorrow, right? And if we don't hear that, doesn't it seem at some point ludicrous, the idea that Proctor was planting evidence? All right. Similarly, there's the legend of Brian Wanless, who I have heard nothing but good things about, that he's a good man. So I please don't think that I'm in any way taking a shot at him. People get swept up into this conspiracy. But we were told by Sean and Murphy that the feds, the FBI, paid a visit to Brian Wanless. We also, in fact, they said that, I believe they said that Wanless had said something about, they even supposedly gave more detailed information about what Wanless saw, that they were taking out the taillight because whoever pried pieces earlier on sometime after 5 on the 29th did it in such a hasty way, trying to reach inside to pull pieces of taillight plastic out, that they made a scratch. Now, I don't know how having Brian Wanless remove that taillight would help cover up that scratch. It's never made sense to me. Ever since Sean told me that some version of that theory this summer, it's never made sense to me. It still doesn't. But certainly, I would think if the feds found that there was something interesting, if it's true that the FBI interviewed him and he had something interesting to say, then they would have called on him to testify before the grand jury. And all those notes are what got turned over. So if you don't hear the name Wanless tomorrow, don't you have to dismiss him from the theory? In fact, don't you at some point, nobody ever wants to challenge any of these people, but now it's basically Sean that's leading the charge here. I don't think it's so much Turtle anymore. To be honest, I think Turtle's an intelligent guy, and he's starting to realize I've been had, and I got to figure out a way out of this. It's a difficult situation to get out of. But Sean just doesn't, as Sean said, he's going to die on that hill, and he knows it. I think he's sweating it. I think it looks like it. I think it looks like he's under a lot of stress, and he knows that he has no choice anymore. That's why he puts it that way. I've got to die on this hill, because he knows what's at stake. His whole reputation is at stake. Everything, and all those merch shirts that he's selling too. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult position to put yourself in. And I tried to tell Sean back in September, because I care about him. And I was like, please, Sean, just accept this bit of advice from me. Don't paint yourself into a corner. So you got some people that trust you now, and you have some people working with you. That's a good thing. Try to build on it. Get on the fence. All right. Talk in a neutral way about the evidence that's coming in. And that's it. Don't don't die on a hill. That's, I didn't use those words, but that's exactly what I was saying. Don't die on that hill. You don't need to die on any hill. And to me, that's the whole problem in this case, is that so many people have felt they have to die on a hill. And even people who just were only participating in social media, even some people that have been quiet, I guess, because just emotionally, they've invested so much in this. Well, if there's no mention of Brian Wanless tomorrow, won't somebody have the courage to, one of these grifters on YouTube or somebody in chat at least, to go up to Brian Wanless, to go up to Sean McDonough and say, Sean, dude, why was there no mention of Wanless? Because we keep hearing more excuses. And we've been hearing now for 3 months by Sean every week. They're coming next week to arrest everybody. And it never happens. And people keep falling for it. Well, is there some point where people stop falling for it? Is falling for it? Is there some point? I'm starting to wonder if there really is. But I do think that a lot of people now are saying, all right, what the hell is going on here? Nothing this guy says ever comes true. And many of these theories don't even make any sense. I think tomorrow, if people don't hear the name Wanless, if people don't hear about communications between Michael Proctor and the families, the supposed suspects, I think it really, at this point, people are going to, most sane people that have, sincere and honest and legitimate questions are going to tune this and start tuning these guys out and say, all right, you guys are just full of shit. Same thing if you don't hear the name Brian Higgins tomorrow about, I mean, we were told, what, for 8 months, 9 months, that Higgins was flipping. Higgins was inside the house and he witnessed the murder and he's flipping. And look, none of that makes sense, because if Higgins was inside the house and even if he had a change of heart later and flipped, he'd still be indicted. All right, he might get a cushy deal. That's what flipping is. When a mafia guy flips on his bosses, he still gets indicted. He just gets a generous deal. So I tried to say this back then. If Higgins has not been indicted, he hasn't flipped. But now we pretty much know Higgins hasn't flipped. And certainly if you're still holding out some kind of clinging to a life raft hope that Higgins has flipped, if you don't hear that name tomorrow, isn't that enough? Same with Lucky Lawford. Our sources tell us that Lucky was subpoenaed to testify before the federal grand jury this summer and that it was canceled. To my knowledge, it was never, they never summons him again. If you don't hear the name, but maybe he was secretly subpoenaed and he did testify. Well, if so, both sides will have that tomorrow. If you don't hear the name Lucky Laughlin, doesn't that tell you it's time to dismiss that aspect of the theory? Another thing that I'm wondering if we'll hear something about, and I don't know, but because we don't know what the feds, we know they were interviewing people and we know that they had a grand jury where they were getting people, calling people in to testify. But we don't know. We also know from the state that they never reached out to the state and asked for any of the evidence. I'm not sure if they had to, because they were working so closely with Karen's team that they probably had all that same evidence that the state had given them through discovery. So I think there's a chance that maybe the feds had enough evidence that they could look at that they didn't have to message the state. And they obviously, for some reason, didn't want the state to know what they were doing, that they were communicating so closely with the defense. But is there some kind of information that they were able to get through federal resources easier than the state could get? So we're always told that the feds can get data whenever they want. So GPS and communications and stuff like that. I don't know how true that is, but every cop seems to say it. Sean and Murphy was saying it, and maybe some of that is kind of mythological. Like, well, I didn't say that very well, did I? Let me take a sip. Mythical, maybe. It doesn't really. I don't know. The feds can't legally go and get that data. They still have to have warrants. So it's possible they're still able to look at things like communications and GPS and geofence without getting the warrants. But if they did that, we're not going to see anything about it. However, did they get some warrants to go and get, for example, the geofence data? Maybe. right? So maybe they got the geofence data. The geofence data would show if any devices came in and hooked up to the Wi-Fi in the house or in the neighborhood if they got more than one house. So we could see something tomorrow on that, right? Potentially, or the GPS. Now, I'm not sure if you can get the I'm not sure if you can get the GPS through some other means besides actually getting John's phone. So I don't know. Like, I maybe not. I don't know. I'm not technical enough to answer that question. So the GPS is a chip that's inside your phone or also inside your car, and it's a one-way chip. It doesn't send out signals. So if it gets it from the satellite. So if the satellite was to hit the GPS signal in John's phone, the only way the feds would be able to get that without having the phone is if there's some app within the phone that sends that data out. And that's possible, right? I don't know. So those are the things I want to just repeat them really quickly because it's so important. These are the things that, if they aren't said tomorrow, should be incredibly meaningful to people. Because I know what's going to happen is the game show host, Alan Jackson, is going to go out there and he's going to find a lot of little things to seize on. And nobody on the other channels will ever question anything. They just run with it. And it tends to cloud a lot of good people's minds. And what I want them to do is say, all right, what is it that wasn't said? So, for instance, as I said, if the feds manage to get access to a period of Proctor's communications, and there's no communication that they found between him and the Alberts or the McCabe's, or no level of communication that shows something going on. There might be some communication once the investigation got underway because he'd be getting their numbers, and they were witnesses. So, of course, there would be communication at that point. But if there was no prior communication or no communication early that day, if you don't find that stuff, doesn't it really kind of make it super, super duper unlikely that there was a conspiracy here where Proctor would have to take that kind of risk, and you're not seeing any communication asking him for help or showing that he knows these people? I think it's worth thinking about that and say, okay, yeah, if they don't bring that up tomorrow, that's dead. If there's no mention of Brian Wanless, it's time to let that go. If there's no mention of Higgins flipping, if there's no mention of Lucky, maybe if there's no indication tomorrow that the federal investigation is ongoing. Now, I don't know. I'm less sure about that. It's possible the federal investigation could still be ongoing and they won't know it tomorrow because the feds are devious and sneaky and they're not going to tell you. All right. I want to talk a little bit about, I'll come back and check messages in a moment, checking chat. So the other night on the show, I talked about how Sean had this crazy theory, which he now knows is crazy. So he's adjusted it. So I'm gonna address the newest version of it. So what he said was that Julie Nagel was inside the house and she was planning to sleep over. That was the plan. And then something changed it. Suspicious, right? I mean, kind of crazy that she's planning to sleep over because maybe she thought she was going to drink more. Who knows why it changed, right? Is she not having as much fun as she thought? Or she heard the old timers were coming, so she called for a ride. It doesn't, you don't know. Maybe you have an upset stomach. It's not really suspicious that someone just decides to go home, But so what he's saying is that she was planning to say, so it's suspicious that suddenly she decided to go home. And then what he said was that what he's saying happened was that Julie called her brother for a ride because she had just witnessed John get attacked inside the house. Now, Brian from LTL doesn't ask questions. Nobody ever pushes back. I push back on this channel and he has to respond because I'm the only one that pushes back. There are people I'm sure that privately do, but people on YouTube or any of these channels, I'm the only one that pushes back. So that's what I'll always do here is try to pursue the truth. I don't have a hill to die on. To me, it doesn't matter what the truth is. I'll respond to whatever the new, if there's new evidence tomorrow, I'll stick with that. But it was impossible that Julie called her brother for a ride because her brother, who was a passenger in his friend's truck, they arrived at the same exact time as Karen and John. So that's impossible. And when we pointed that out, Sean said, okay, let's redo this. Now what I'm saying is that Julie learned that Brian was going to attack, that they were going to attack John. And that's why she called for a ride. So the new version of the theory is that Brian got home with his friends and he said, everybody in there, I'm going to kill that fucking bastard, John O'Keefe. We have no idea why they worked together. There's no history of any anger there. There's no history of any kind of a feud. They both were Boston cops, but who knows, right? Maybe some strange thing happened, right? But just think about it, if that even makes a little bit of sense. Okay, so now the new theory is that they're planning to attack John inside their own home with their wives there, with Brian's 23-year-old son there, and with the friend Julie Nagel there, and the young nurse, Levinson. And Brian wants these people to all see the attack for some reason because he won't let Julie leave. That's Sean's theory. All right, this is the guy that so many people you guys are listening to are taking seriously. It's beyond absurd. It's so beyond absurd that I have to reach for a new adjective. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, just think about, even if you know nothing about life except from through watching mafia movies. Would the mafia do that? All right. If Brian Albert was a mafia king, which sometimes Sean kind of likens him to, right? Does the mafia do their hits in their own home, in front of their own families, in front of their wives, in front of their children? Is that how a mafia hit takes place? Well, at least not in the movies, it doesn't. And I actually follow some of the mafia channels, the mafia YouTube channels. I enjoy listening to their old stories for some reason. Guilty pleasure, sorry. And I've never heard about anybody planning a hit in their own house. I've never heard about anybody planning a hit in front of their wives and kids. But according to Sean's theory, now that's what they were doing. And they wanted Julie to see it because they wouldn't let Julie leave. So they instructed her to go outside and tell her brother, nope, I'm not going with you. In fact, she invited him to come into the house. And good thing they said no, because I guess they would have come in and seen this crazy attack too. But it's absurd. And this is the problem with this. This is what happens when you have a hill to die on. You're forced into accepting stranger and stranger things. This is what happened back in September or August, actually, when I was talking to Sean, and his theory was that John's SUV, which was in the driveway, and you've all seen the videos of Karen backing into it, no damage was found, not a scratch on that SUV. And according to Sean, he said that according to the laws of physics, that's impossible. No, I don't know. I think it's possible to really back into something very lightly and not do any damage. But they needed to be some damage because they want that to be where the taillight was cracked. So it was important to them to explain why there was no scratch on the SUV. And so he came up with the theory that they whisked away John's theory that day, John's SUV that day, to the auto body shop to buff out any damage. I kid you not. And when he told me this, it was on the phone. And I said, Sean, these guys the family was in the house grieving all day. It was during a blizzard. Nobody noticed that John's vehicle disappeared for however many hours it took to fix the damage. Nobody noticed that. And this is the problem of being on a hill. Instead of saying, yeah, you're right, that doesn't work. That's what I would do. If I'm going down, I go down all the various scenarios. So I'm looking at any crime or anything. But once I get to, let's say your scenario starts with A and you know it has to end at F. And you're running down A, maybe then B, then C. All right, maybe that works. Maybe that works. And all of a sudden you get to E and E can't work. Well, then I say, all right, I eliminate this whole angle. A is gone. A is gone. That theory's off my books. Sean doesn't. He now takes something crazy and forces it in there in order to try to make the theory work. And that's what happens when you have a hill to die on. he was complaining just a little earlier when I put in his channel, well, Kevin's got a book on, and he calls everybody else grifters. Again, I want to explain what a grifter is and my definition, and I think it's a reasonable one. A grifter is someone that doesn't care about the truth, and a grifter is someone that doesn't care about what innocent people he hurts. Now, when I made that definition, I didn't necessarily have Sean in mind, but now he's got a YouTube channel. Now he's got a merch store. Yeah, that's grifting. He doesn't care about the truth, and he doesn't care about smearing innocent people. He doesn't care. So that's grifting by definition. Now, the difference would say what I would do if I read a book on this, and I started a book months ago, and I just been so kind of caught up with other stuff that I haven't had time to do anything on it. I don't care if I write a book on it or not. I'm a pretty decent writer, so maybe I will. And if I do write a book, yeah, I'll try to sell it. And if somebody comes along, if some publisher wants to give me a lot of money for it, damn right, I'll take it. But that's not grifting. If I was grifting, I wouldn't be pursuing the truth. If I was grifting, I would have been doing what he's doing and pushing a conspiracy theory, because conspiracy sells. All right. That's what the Tennessee grifter does. The grifter, he understands here that he's latched on to Turtle's group, and it's been very lucrative for him. And anybody that's not asking questions of both sides or trying to get to the truth is a grifter. Anybody that's participating in smearing innocent people, despite the fact that there's no evidence against them, is grifting. That's what grifting is. Grifting doesn't mean just because you make money off something. I doubt I'll ever make money off this, but if I sell a book, great. I mean, that's anybody in journalism or in the media, they're getting paid for what they do. That's just professionalism. They have to support themselves. That's not grifting. It's you can even look at this if somebody does a true crime book. Let's say they do it on the Zodiac murders or something like that. If you are researching an angle that you think is really exciting, like let's say there was a famous person, Joy Behar was suspected of being, you've got this theory that Joy Behar is the Zodiac killer. Let's say that's your theory. And you've got a couple of little pieces of information that look like it's lucrative. And you're like, boy, this is really going to sell. But then you run into some evidence to say, okay, that's not really, it wasn't possible. Joy Behar was not at the scene of the crime or anywhere near it, and it just couldn't happen. If you're a grifter, you ignore that and just keep going with your theory. But if you're an honest journalist, an honest writer, just an honest, decent human being, you scratch the Joy Behar book, the Joy Behar angle on that, and you say, okay. And even if it means you have to identify some unknown person that's the Zodiac killer, and therefore your book is 1,000 times less lucrative, you still do it because it's the truth, because you're committed to the truth. So this is to me, that's the difference between grifting. So somebody posted a picture I want to share with you guys. This is from Karen's car being towed. And let's take a look at this. This is from, I'll try to make sure I've got this as big as I can. All right. Unfortunately, that's probably about as, all right. All right. So this is I think, so I want to give credit for who posted this. This is Machine Gun Belly. I have no idea whose side of the debate he's on here. Or, yeah, Belly, I assume it's a guy. I'm not sure even where this is supposedly in Dighton, Karen's car being towed. I can't confirm the authenticity of this at all. So we can just look at this and say, okay, what if it's true? Is this taken from the driveway? Because we know that Karen had a Ring video. Her parents had a Ring video system as well. So is this taken from that? I don't know who else will be taking this picture. I guess this actually could be a dash cam video screen capture from the Dighton police that were there. That's probably even a more likely theory. Somebody I think they had referred to this. Machine Gun Belly seemed to think that it was, I don't know, it doesn't really say here. So So Machine Gun says, next time you talk, actually, this was addressed to me. That's why I saw it. Kevin, next time you talk to Sean, ask him why Karen Reed has not put the taillight fiasco to bed by posting a ring shot of her Lexus parked right under the camera. Ask her why she only leaked this particular photo. Let's offer her money to release it. I'll chip in. Well, I'm not chipping in because I'm a grifter. So I'm not going to pay Karen any money for anything. But so I think actually he might be wrong about this being from the ring. I would guess it's from the dash cam of the Dighton, but I'm not sure. So the interesting things, if Karen, assuming Karen did release this, and I don't know, it looks like it's pulling out of the driveway. I don't know if it's pulling out of the driveway because I don't think the tow truck can get in that way. So yeah, I don't really know. So are there more pictures with this? If it was taken from, if it's just a shot from the dash cam, is there more video? Are there more pictures that would go with this? She would have that. Likewise, if it was from the ring video. Now, looking at the discovery evidence listed, my understanding is that Karen's family has never turned over the ring video from their house. I don't know for sure. It's not listed in the evidence. We're told it was there. We know that it was subpoenaed by the state. I think maybe only in the fall, but I'm not sure about that. So does it, did they delete it? Did they record over it? I'm not accusing them of anything untoward or suspicious at this point. I don't know I don't know the evidence. Let me take a drink. But it is kind of interesting that there is some video that this was taken from. So whether it was taken from the ring video or whether it was taken from the dash cam video, you wonder if there was a better angle that showed the taillight. But I don't know that that's the case. But obviously, Machine Gun Belly is saying that he thinks that there would be, and she has been selective about what she has released, and that's a reasonable assumption, but we don't know for sure. So we will know in a month if the trial goes as scheduled. Oh, just a quick break from Karen Reed. Karen note, a note: the Delphi murders. The trial of Richard Allen is now set for May 13th. They penciled in May 13th to May 31st. So about 2.5 weeks. Starts at 8:30 in the morning. I have no idea if it will be something if there's cameras in the courtroom. Every state has their own rules on that. And, there are always compelling reasons for things to be made public like that. But also in this case here, you want to be sensitive to the families because they're going to be given really gruesome details about what those girls went through. There'll be images. Now, they can probably hide those from the camera, but I don't know if that trial will be available. I don't even know if I want to stream it because of the details. Any case that involves kids like that. So I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyways, Richard Allen had exercised his state right to appeal in Indiana for a speedy trial. So that's going to go off in May. Unless there's some continuance that Richard agrees to. Now, why does Richard want that speedy trial? We don't know. And we can only speculate, right? So normally it's the standard, very much normally the defense is going to try to delay a trial. That's what they do. There's a lot of advantages to that, but certainly you're delaying the defendant delays the time to go to jail if they get convicted. But also it's a way to witness testimony gets further away and stuff like that. So you see defenses trying to get continuances. We see that here in the Karen case. So, but what's the situation in Delphi? Why does Richard Allen want that speedy trial? Don't know. Is it possibly that there's some further evidence that is not in discovery, but they're worried that the state will get, and they want to hurry things? That's just speculation, maybe, right? Could there be some other reason? Don't really know. Richard Allen confessed over the phone to his wife in jail. And there are still there's probably hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people that follow that case and still think Richard Allen is innocent. Now, I've seen the evidence that's listed, the publicly available evidence in the documents, and to me, it's a slam dunk that Richard Allen is guilty. Now, there were still questions about the case as to whether or not somebody helped arrange for him to meet the girls or some kind of accomplice. I don't believe there was, but I don't rule it out. This Keegan Kline is a very compelling suspect because he was catfishing Libby. So it would be the mother of all coincidences if Keegan Kline was not somehow involved and totally separate from his stalking of Libby. That and stalking really isn't really the right word. He cast out a wide web of people that he was trying to get them to send him pictures and videos for. He was pretending to be somebody else. So maybe stalking her in particular isn't exactly accurate here, but she's someone that he had catfished and had paid her some money at some point over the line. She thought he was somebody totally else. She thought he was this fictional character, a 17-year-old model with a fictional character called Anthony Schatz that Keegan Kline invented. Keegan Kline was actually a creep who was in his mid-20s. And he's now in jail and will be for like the next 40 years for all kinds of, it's called CSAM. It's basically, I forget exactly, but child something, adult material, I think. Child sensitive adult material. I forget exactly what it stands for, but it's basically child porn. He had that on his phone, supposedly some really bad stuff. And then obviously for the catfishing. So it is the mother of all coincidences if for some reason Keegan Kline is not connected to this. I don't think that he is. And the reason is there seems to be no evidence of any communication between Richard Allen and Keegan Kline. Keegan Kline lived in Peru, Indiana, which was about a 20-minute drive away. But who knows? So we'll see what comes out. Will Richard Allen try to work out a plea deal before his trial? Seems like a reasonable thing to do. He's got a public defenders, so he does not have a game show host defending him. And they've come up with a very elaborate theory that says that he had nothing to do with the killings, that the girls were killed by an Odin cult. And his confession in jail was forced out of him by a couple of guards who are said to be part of that cult. So that's his defense. But if he's convicted in really what is the worst crime really in Indiana's history in many ways, Indiana is a state that has a death penalty. So it seems like it would be in his interest, unless he wants to die, to cut a deal where he avoids the death penalty. But we'll see what happens. Who knows? And I think there was a couple of other things in the news that I wanted to bring up to you guys. There was one that was about DNA evidence. Let me just pull this up for you. This was in Colorado. I gotta find this for you. All right, this was a woman, a lab worker, like I guess a famous lab worker, is now charged. All right, here it is. I'll bring this up for you. All right, so this woman was all right. The DNA scan, this is originally from the Wall Street Journal, the DNA scandal that threatens thousands of criminal cases. Colorado investigators say star analyst Yvonne Missy Woods altered data. Now people she helped send to prison want their convictions re-examined. So I highlighted a couple things. At the center of the storm is a mystery. Was Woods just sloppy, or has she been purposely cutting corners for decades to put people behind bars? So you could see some new trials out of this. You got to give the prosecutors credit for looking at this point once they've uncovered this. So they emailed district attorneys across the state because the lab director for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation said Woods had, in some cases, altered data and in others analyzed samples several times, but reported only one result. So that's like you run the numbers, and if it doesn't give you what you want, you dismiss it and you do it again, and you keep doing it until you get what you want. So I suspect this kind of stuff goes on a lot. In fact, the person who invented DNA matching is now one of the strongest advocates against that. He only uses DNA research as part of the Innocence Project to liberate people that were falsely convicted. But the reason he's against, even though he developed the method, is because he doesn't trust the authorities to handle this properly, and he thinks there's a lot of innocent people who are being falsely put in jail. Now, so far in this case here, they have not found anybody. They're looking at cases that they think could be something where a situation where someone might have been falsely convicted, and they're going through it piecemeal. And so far, they have not found any altered data in a specific case that led to someone going to jail. And she says that it never did, that the samples that she did had nothing to do with that. So, who knows? But it shows that shit definitely goes on, and no one would ever say that it doesn't. It's you guys tend to think, oh, Kevin's he thinks the troopers or the state never lied. No. I don't. Human beings are human beings. There are corrupt cops. There are corrupt firemen. There are corrupt nuns. Corruption is everywhere. That's and good people are everywhere. And you have to just recognize. You look at the evidence. You don't give, when it comes to an investigation, you don't give them the benefit of the doubt. So you look at the evidence and always be open to the possibility that something corrupt went on. So that's what I do in every case. Tequila Mockingbird paid $1.99 to insult me, and it was a lame insult. but for $1.99, I'll read it out. You really need to stop grifting. But I've already explained to everybody what grifting is. Grifting is not just going on and trying to pursue the truth. Grifting is fucking around with the truth and having a reckless disregard for it. That's grifting. Okay. I want to say hi to some regulars. Will Scott, hi. Comfort and Joy, of course. Slatherings, good to see you. Joey Diego, good to see you. Jeff, Kathy, Lori, good to see you. Smitty says the backup video when she hit John's car in the driveway. I can show that again. I mean, I have several versions of that. I made that myself in the editor that I zoomed in. I'm not sure if I've shown it so many times in the channel. I'm not. If anybody wants to email and they want their own copy of that, of some of the edits I made where it highlights, I zoom in on what looks like, could be. Well, interestingly, we didn't know, we had never seen pictures of the taillight, so we didn't know where the missing pieces were on it. And when I took that video and we zoomed in with some of the guys on my team back in like August or September or whatever it was, and we couldn't be conclusive on it because you couldn't tell, especially since we're not experts on how that taillight functions. You couldn't say for sure, but it looked like there were missing pieces, or at least some splotch or damage that happened to be just coincidentally happened to be exactly where we now know the piece is missing. Now, a lot of people, Sean, have been posting pictures of the taillight from that same video, but a different shot that shows it from more or less straight behind it. But you won't see it from that angle, I don't think. It looks to me like you'll only see it if you get somewhat of a side view of it. That's where most of the damage was. So, but again, it's inconclusive. We can't really tell. It's not a great picture. You can look at it. You can tell when the brake lights are hit because you can see the brake light that's in the rear window go on. Unfortunately, when she's driving by the camera, the brake light is not on, so we don't see those interior lights light up. We'll need to see at trial when the experts, I presume, will be able to show us a better view of the tail light, and it's you have red LED lights in it, and then you also have white lights, white bulbs in it, and you also have red pieces. So white light through a red piece of let's call it glass, but it's really plastic. But through a red piece of glass will look red. White light through the red light, but there's also red LED lights in there too. So it's a it's a tricky little, it's a complicated little piece of machinery. Mike Capers, good to see you, my man. Rare to see you here. Good to see you, bro. Someone named Dog Trainer. So, I've talked to a dog trainer who said that those are not at all the wounds. That's, in fact, what the dog trainer said was that if a German Shepherd or really any dog attacked, not playing, but attacked, you wouldn't have scratch marks on it. You would just have the bite marks. I don't know that for sure, but that's what they said. But also, I can say that what I've looked up, the wounds that you would see, and you can do this right now. You're on a computer, right? Unless you're watching this on a phone, you can open up another browser and Google dog attack wounds. And you'll see what I saw back in April and May, even when I was more on Team Conspiracy because I thought the 227 search was real. But I was confounded by the pictures that I saw of dog attack wounds because none of them looked like what I was seeing on John. Now, it wasn't conclusive, but, a dog attack, even by a relatively small dog, is a very vicious thing. The wounds are deep. And this is a German Shepherd. So those wounds don't look like that to me. They look like at the most what you might get from a dog playing with you. And I don't think anybody is suspecting that John went in and played with the dog. So, but in any case, it really is a moot point anyways, because it's neither side disputes now from an independent lab that no canine evidence was found on the clothing. So again, you're forced into weirder and weirder explanations of that. People are out there saying they washed the clothing or they switched the t-shirt. I mean, that stuff is pretty absurd. All right. You're going to see the t-shirt in the trial, and you're going to see that it's a long sleeve hooded t-shirt, and you're going to see that same thing. So, I see it. We hate to ban people. Don't have to do it too often because most people are pretty reasonable here, but every once in a while the door opens and a zombie gets through. Yeah. And I don't mean someone that has questions. I mean someone that comes in is going to act disrespectful and put all caps and just kind of generally be an idiot. That's not what we have here. We have people we have free care and read people here that ask questions from both sides. And to me, that's what this group is all about. Sherlock Holmes. What's that famous quote that Sherlock Holmes said? I can find this somewhere. I think I have this quote somewhere. Sherlock said, let's see, all right, Sherlock Holmes. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And so, we kind of try to do that here, I think all of us. And what we do is you start trying to just eliminate the impossible. And that's all. You're not starting out with any preconception about what you think happened. And when it comes to eliminating the impossible, nobody's perfect at doing that. A lot of that has to do with, your knowledge base, sometimes your expertise. So sometimes you need to lean on experts in order to be able to eliminate the impossible. So for instance, if we could get someone on that was an expert on the taillight or someone that's an expert on dog attacks and things like that. So I think that it helps that to have a group here that everybody kind of is the same way. You're trying to just rationally and reasonably eliminate the impossible. And that's how we do it, you know? So I'll check to see if there's any more questions, and then we'll call it, because I'm going to be on the air tomorrow streaming. So I'll go on probably about 8:30. And as soon as we find the hearing, we always find the hearing on time, but it's always touch and go. Like, you find it right at the last second, because there's been multiple different sources that it tends to be on. So I have in the past several times found it on WCVB's website. I found it on Fox 25's website. And at one time we found it on NBC's, the local NBC's website. Last time we weren't able to find it on any of those. And I was all set to do something really that I didn't want to do, and stream the Grifters channel. Didn't want to do it, but if I did, I would have given him credit. But fortunately, then somebody reached out and said, no, it's on Fox 25's YouTube channel this time. So I'll have all those tabs open that I've found it on in the past, and we'll see but I guarantee we'll find it, because if I don't find it, somebody here will tell me, and we'll put it up right away. So we will get it before the hearing starts. There's no question. And once the hearing does start, I won't say anything. I won't interrupt. You won't even see my face. I'll take myself off the screen. You won't hear me yelling out anything. You'll just listen to the lawyers and the judge. All right, so let's go back a couple of questions here. Jeff suggested Court TV. I had that browser open, and they didn't have it on. So I don't know. But again, maybe I go to their website. Maybe I should go to their YouTube channel too. Maybe that's, so I'll have all these things open, and one of us will find it. And then when we do, I'll move aside and be quiet, and I'll come on during the breaks and we can recap it. But in the meantime, the chat will be open, so you guys can talk about it in chat. Canton is that. So Will says last time it was on CTV. So we found it on Fox 25's YouTube. What is CTV? Is that the Canton Confidential TV or something? I'm not sure what CTV is. Jules has a question. Are you I don't mind. All right, I'll take on any question if you want. This seems a little out of left field. Jules says, I have a question. Are you afraid to die from cancer? Are you a believer in God? You should use your channel for health and healing, not hate and negativity. Jewel, what kind of human being are you? You should be hanging out on Sean's channel. That's disgusting. I don't know what kind of person. I know I've been nice to Jewel. She used to attack me this summer because she was a free Karen Reed person. And then she left that team and went to the other team and started attacking her old team, including Turtle Boy. She used to be a Turtle provider. Then she started attacking Turtle. She just seems to want to attack. That's the only mode she knows. So now she's going to attack me because what? Because I have cancer? Well, how strange. How strange. She says, I look unwell and I'm sorry you're dying. What business of that is it yours to post something like that? I just leave it up there just so maybe you look at the comment and say, what kind of nasty thing is that to say? I hope you look at that. I hope there's something going on in your life that justifies being that nasty. But that's nasty. Using my channel for hate and negativity. What hate and negativity? I hate people that don't ask questions. I hate people that smear innocent people. I hate people that report false things that they know are false. I don't hate the people necessarily. Like, I don't hate Sean. But when Sean puts out falsehoods, things that he knows are false, Sean knows that Karen and John arrived at the same time as Ryan Nagel in the truck. He knows that. Yet he puts it out there in order to smear a 23-year-old woman as an accomplice to murder. That's the negativity, all right? Someone has to stand up to that. And I wish it didn't have to be me, because it should be other people. Whatever. It doesn't seem to happen on YouTube. There's everybody that jumps in on this case wants to grift. All right. So, and with that, bye. Joey Diego says a scratch can be any size. A scratch refers to the depth of the wound. Dog bites from big dogs usually are deeper than scratches. But again, the way I was told by someone who works with dogs is that when the dog is in attack mode, he's not throwing his paws up there. I don't know that. He said that it would just be biting, and it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of that on John's arm. There doesn't seem to be any lower marks. The wounds are, if they look at all like, if they resemble in any way something from a dog, it'd be from a dog playing around. But again, there was no canine evidence found on the clothing, and there would be. Any abrasion needs context for its origin. Imagine text your doctor a picture of bruise in your skin and asking him how it got there. So, not sure that could be in regards to, did the troopers give any context to the medical examiner by saying where John was found? So did she go in with a bias that she was investigating a hit and run as opposed to something else possible? Not sure if that's what Joey was saying. Just Chrissy the Crone. Can I ask what type of cancer you have? My son-in-law is a researcher at Dana-Farber. I have stage 4 lung cancer, diagnosed over 5 years ago, and it's been treated with a targeted therapy which stabilizes it, and it's been stable. I go to the gym every day. So for her to say I look unhealthy or something, I've been to the gym today. It seems really unusual to just jump on and start saying something like that. I'm not, and considering how well I've treated her, I don't know why she would do that. But it's lung cancer. I'm treated at Mass General Hospital. I have a friend who has the exact same cancer, the exact same genetic mutation too, and is treated with the exact same targeted therapy. And he's being treated at Dana-Farber, and he's very happy with it. So both Dana-Farber in Boston and Mass General Hospital in Boston are very good systems. Julie says, I'm not sure that is Jules. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. It could be somebody pretending to be Jules. So, and if so, I'm really sorry. I apologize, Jules, if I get tricked. Mike Kipper says, well, you never look good, bro. Thanks, Mike. I needed that. That's true. That's true. Mike knew me back from the bar owning days in Worcester. Mike was a frequent drinking buddy, among other things, and a good friend, and a softball buddy. Lori says it's not Jules. Okay, well, I hope not. Then, Company Joy says good night. Good night. Chrissy says that her son-in-law is researching cutting-edge treatments, is why I asked what type of cancer. So it's non-small cell lung cancer. And in my case, it's driven by mutation in the exon 19, whatever the hell that means. Rumors said that the feds got involved when they picked up Higgins calling into a wire that was set up on the Birchmore person of interest. Thoughts? I mean, I heard that rumor this summer, and I don't believe it, because Higgins was a likely candidate for rumors. Here's a Fed who was at the party, who left at 1:30 like everybody else, but went and logged into work. It seemed really weird. He had an office at the Canton police station. So all that looked pretty suspicious. And then we soon found out that there were numerous texts listed in discovery between Karen and Higgins, and also between John and Higgins, but a lot more between Karen and Higgins. And so, like, what's going on there, right? So this is where the idea started that Higgins had flipped, but Higgins has not flipped. There's no reason to think the only reason he's on that list that I know of, because it was most recently, those texts were listed in one of the state's more recent documents. The only reason that I can think of is that the messages show that that Karen and him were having an affair that had only been going on for a couple of weeks. And so how is that relevant? I think it only shows that it's only relevant. The state is trying to show that there was a lot of friction between Karen and John at that time. In fact, it looks like Karen went into that affair not because she was I don't know, her primary motivation seemed to be she was mad at John because she thought John had kissed someone on New Year's Eve when they were on vacation. And she seems to be very jealous. Giants fan, Lucky is the most credible witness. It's not that he's not credible. The way I look at it is every case that I've looked deeply into, every one, there are witnesses, and even just if you look at something, a big event like the JFK conspiracy, there are witnesses that seem incredibly, or a UFO encounter, right? There are witnesses that seem incredibly credible. And you can't imagine them. I don't want to use the word lying, because what happens is there are sometimes witnesses to these events or these crimes that it turns out what they testify they saw or what they say they saw has no, couldn't be true. Now, it doesn't mean they're lying. Human memory is very, very fragile. There's a lot of problems with human memory. We're influenced by a lot of things around us, and false memories can force very easily. I'm not saying that any of that applies to Lucky Lawford. Okay. Lucky has told his story officially 3 times, right? He told it initially to a private investigator for Karen. Then he told it to, so 4 times actually, because then he told it to the feds, and he also told it to Turtle Boy, in which Turtle Boy wiretapped him. And then finally he told it to the state police. And from what I've seen, his story was pretty consistent. So whatever story he arrived at in his mind, he's been consistent with it. But you have to, if something doesn't match the physical evidence, in every case, there are going to be witness accounts in every case that if they don't match it, you can't really, you can't usually explain it. Was the person lying? That it was in a false memory? Maybe they saw something, but it got misinterpreted. I mean, you just don't know. But this is why you have to go by the physical evidence primarily. I'm always suspicious of any eyewitness testimony unless it is supported by other eyewitnesses or by physical evidence. That's always been my position on this. I'm just a guy that's been investigating true crime a little bit. I'm not at all an expert. So you guys can decide if that seems like a reasonable thing for you. Tom, thank you, Tom. His next post will be in Florida, you bastard. And he thanks chat for keeping things cool. Elaine asked how the treatments are going. They're going good. I had radiation treatments for 5 days that ended last week. Seems to be good. It's reduced the pain a little bit, so pretty good. And I had no side effects from the radiation treatments. Again, if that wasn't Jules, I apologize to Jules. So, good night, Mike. Good to see you, man. Chrissy says, I have MS, and I have people in my family that have that too. And I swear he breaks my treatments down as I am using B cell depletion. Well, I would like to hear more from you, Chrissy, just because I have a family member who has MS too. So if you could email me, Leitzkev, Leitskev. My family members had it for, I think, 10 years. So I would be interested to know what your brother's working on. Kevin, there was a new discovery filing with a Needham police report listed in the idea. The chat is that is just related to the DNA evidence. Nothing new. I did see that though, and I had the same question. Hi, Nicole. Good to see you. Oh, did I actually catch up in chat? Oh, that's amazing. Unless there's a freeze here, 8:40. Yeah, I am caught up. All right, good. So if anybody has a question, I have reached the end of the chat, and we'll stay on for maybe 10 more minutes if you guys want. Kathy Chapin for her donation and always wishing me the best. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I really do. And it's obviously being out here on this side of the debate, of the Karen Reed debate, has been a trying time. It's been a very lonely position. I mean, everybody that I knew was in on the conspiracy. Everybody that I was working with on this case or anything like that, and I just kept asking questions, and that's all. And I won't stop doing that. So if some new evidence we learn tomorrow at the hearing makes me go the other way, I'll do it. But at this point, really, the evidence is, I just can't imagine it because the evidence is so powerful at this point. It would have to be the most elaborate conspiracy that you could ever imagine for something like this. If so, this is the real Jules back. I apologize, Jules. Somebody that came under your name was trying to say some nasty things, saying that I look unwell and I should stop being so negative and talking about my cancer and this and that. But if that's not the real Jules, I should have known, and I was fooled. So I'm sorry. Joey says the biggest thing tomorrow is to see how the judge. Let's put that up. The biggest thing tomorrow is to see how the judge reacts. This case will depend a lot on what she allows the jury to hear in regards to defense conspiracy theories. I think it's extremely unlikely that this case will be dismissed on anything, just because, and you can see this really argued well in, you could see this really argued well by the state in their opposition in January, when what they talked about was how the way the law works is it's very, very difficult to overcome. It's the state gives a presumption, an enormous weight to the decision of the grand jury, is the way I would put it. And so, in order to overturn the grand jury's decision that this has to go to trial, the defense would have to show that evidence was presented to the grand jury that was false, and not just false, but in a way that would have impacted their decision. And that's extremely heavy burden to follow. That's a difficult thing to prove. So I don't even think the defense has any real hope of getting this case dismissed tomorrow. But this is a chance for them to do two things. One, influence the public. Just want to say thanks. So Scott, thank you for the donation. I somehow missed most of this. Could you give a quick summary of the X pages? All right, we'll come back to it at the end. So no, I forgot what I was saying. We were talking about. Oh, what? All right. So the main purpose for the defense tomorrow is, in addition to trying to get this trial continued, but other than that, what they're hoping to do is, again, influence the public, because they know this stuff. They've had a PR campaign since April, right? So they're trying to influence the public, but also it's a trial run for things that they may decide to use in the jury, in front of an actual jury. So we'll see about that, right? I think a lot of the stuff that they've argued in these hearings, we'll never see. We're never going to see. They are not going to go up to a jury and try to tell them that Jen McCabe searched for how long to die in the cold. They're not going to do that. And I don't think they're going to go in front of a jury and try to argue that John's wounds were caused by a dog attack. I don't think that that's going to happen, because you risk having the jury turn so much against you that now if you try to tell the jury that, well, if nothing else, if she hit him, she didn't know it, now they've already dismissed you. So that means that the jury is going to be much more likely to convict her of second-degree murder. So you don't want to. We tend to think that what a defense team does is throw anything out there that sticks and hope that something creates reasonable doubt. But that's not the case. That's our amateur understanding of it. That was my amateur understanding of it until I read Kevin J. Mahoney's article back in September about that. He's a defense attorney, a prominent defense attorney in Boston. And what he explained was that you're not going to go before the jury starts out with a presumption that the defense team, pretty good chance they're going to try to do something a little bit shady. They don't have a lot of credibility with a jury to start because they figure most people are, once the state has brought them. So what's the state going to have? The prosecutors usually have a conviction rate of well in the 90s, right? So they're not usually in the habit of trying to convict innocent people. It happens. It's a terrible thing. Happens frequently enough that we should be concerned. But the majority of the time, when the prosecution takes someone before a jury, that person is guilty. And in every one of those times, the defense, their lawyers, their job is to get up there and try to create reasonable doubt. So the jury is already sitting there looking at the defense like, all right, what kind of shit are they going to try to blow by us now? And it's just how juries think, right? When they're sitting down there. So if any one thing causes those juries to lose faith in the defense, they'll start tuning everything out. If the defense ruins its credibility. So for instance, when Alan Jackson went before the court in September and railed about a non-human hair, that will not happen in the trial. That will not happen in the trial. Because if he does that, the jury's going to start tuning him out after that, and they're not going to believe anything he says. So our idea that they're going to, that the defense team is going to just throw anything out there that might stick in the hope that something does stick and could be the basis of reasonable doubt, I don't see that happening. We have some people here with some more legal experience, like Julio Suave, but I don't know if even Julio has that kind of experience. So we'll see if we can get some other defense attorneys, what they say. But Kevin J. Mahoney is a top-notch defense attorney. So I think, and it's logical, it makes sense that this is how people on a jury will start out thinking. So I think there's a lot to it. I don't think the defense is going to run a lot of this stuff by a jury. And with the exception is if they're going to be studying the jurors closely. And if they see someone that based on their reactions, they think that person might be a turtle rider or a free Karen Reed person, then they might conduct their whole strategy and direct it towards that one person. But even then, you get one person that decides there's a conspiracy here, and the other 11 jurors say no. Well, then all you get is a hung jury, and the state's going to take it to trial again. And so you're not going to get an acquittal unless you actually can convince most of the jurors that there was something that happened. So Lori says it's all to taint the jury pool. Yeah, and that really is the primary thing. But I think there's also a chance that maybe on some of these things, theoretically, you could try to get the judge to dismiss some piece of evidence. But my understanding is that there won't be any discussions of specific evidence tomorrow. So I don't think so. So they're just playing for the big game. I don't know. Maybe there will be, and we don't know, So my expectation is that tomorrow there's just going to be a whole bunch of stuff about compromise Proctor, and they're going to seize on shit you can always find in anybody's communication that you take out of context, but has nothing to do with the actual professionalism of the job and the way things were done. Trooper Proctor was not someone who was working by himself. He was working as part of a fairly large team. You have him and Buchanan as the main lead investigators. They're working under Tully, but there are also teams such as the chem team and the cars team and who knows what else. You got the Trooper Garino, the forensic. These guys are all coming in and doing their part. So, the idea that this evidence is somehow tainted is going to be very, very difficult to prove. So I don't see it happening. I think tomorrow there's going to be some things that get free Karen Reed people, get the horde all excited. But this is why what I said earlier that I wanted to just to call it back. You guys want so tomorrow I think we'll see them talk about compromised Proctor and stuff like that, and they'll find some communications or something in their interview of him, the federal grand jury interview of him. They'll find something in that they can poke a hole in, but that's what they do, right? So what I wanted people to, this is to repeat what I said. What I want people to do is focus on the things tomorrow that are not said. Okay, I think it's very, very important because this is it, right? People have been running with this conspiracy theory for almost a year, and for almost a year, people have been saying the feds are going to come and arrest everybody. They've exposed this conspiracy. They got all the evidence. Now that's never happened, and so people want to keep making these false claims, and it never. At some point, it's the boy who cried wolf, and people are saying, all right, that's just not going to happen. But tomorrow's the last chance, right? So if the feds did get Proctor's communications, I'm saying Proctor because Alan Jackson keeps saying compromised Proctor, but one of the other investigators, if they get those communications and there's no communication between him or one of those guys and the Alberts or the McCabe's, isn't it time to let that go? Isn't it time to let that go? If there's no communications that morning from somebody that could be linked to them, isn't it time to let it go? Or if we don't hear that there were communications prior to that morning that show there was a connection between compromised Proctor and the families, if the feds didn't uncover any communications or any testimony from any people that say there was a relationship there, isn't it time to let that go again? So if you don't hear it brought up tomorrow, pay attention to the questions, pay attention to the things that don't get said tomorrow. That's the thing that I want you to remember. If there's no mention of Brian Wanless, the Canton police officer who owns an auto body shop, and is said by Sean and retired Officer Murphy that he was somehow involved with removing the taillight, and somehow that's part of a conspiracy or something like that. If you and these guys have said that Brian spoke to the FBI, that the FBI came and interviewed him or something like that. We don't know if he testified before the grand jury, but if you don't hear Brian Wallace's name tomorrow, doesn't that tell you something? If you don't hear anything tomorrow about Higgins flipping, or if you don't hear the name Lucky Lawford, doesn't that tell you something? If you don't hear anything about geofence, that we don't know if the feds have any evidence like that, but we're told the feds are very good at getting that stuff. So if you don't hear anything about it, if Alan Jackson doesn't raise that issue, doesn't that tell you there was nothing they found? So, I mean, to me, that's what I'm going to be looking for tomorrow. But, we'll look for anything that could potentially. Julio Suave says, did the feds call another witness? We have no idea. Turtle Boy reported that this morning, and I have no reports on it. I have no indications, nor should I, right? And I have no idea. Can't dismiss any possibility, Julio. I would say it's unlikely based on what Yannetti said, in January, that the feds are going to give everything they have over relevant to the Karen Reed investigation, which the way he worded it, I don't have it in front of me. I should go back and get that for tomorrow, but implied that the Karen Reed investigation, or the investigation into the Karen Reed investigation, was part of a larger investigation. So if that's the case, then they could be, for instance, is Josh Levy doing an investigation into Norfolk County or the Canton Police Department, or just corruption generally, right? And he's looking into the Birchmore case or something. I have no idea what, but so there could be testimony from some other people. Does Turtle Boy have a contact at the Moqui courthouse? I don't think so. He could, but I think more than likely he was using that when his real contact, the information was coming from Karen. So did Karen leak that out now that the federal investigation is still underway? If so, is it believable? No. I mean, it's so, I mean, it's not impossible, but it seems very unlikely. This is going to trial. So, putting out rumors like that is just enough that when we find nothing tomorrow, you're still going to get people saying the feds are still coming. It's like believing in Santa Claus at some point, but I don't think it's going to happen. So it seems extremely unlikely, but we'll go into it with an open mind tomorrow. We'll go into this and we're just going to we'll follow the evidence wherever it goes. That's it. We follow the evidence, right? Sheila says, how do you know so much? I'm just looking at the evidence that's public. And occasionally you have a source, but nobody that is revealing any confidential information. So I don't know. So just ask questions from both sides. Look, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. That's good. That's healthy. Just keep asking questions. But if you're not asking questions for both sides, if you're only getting information from people that have never demonstrated any ability to ask questions from both sides. So the Tennessee grifter, he's not doing it. Aiden's not doing it. LTL's not doing it. Who's the other guy that covers this? The young jerks there. Those guys don't ask those questions. And the people here on this channel do ask those channels and those questions. Now we're always going to ask questions. People were shouting at me all summer, get off the fence, get off the fence. They wanted me to land on one side. No, I'm always going to be on the fence until I have enough evidence. And then if I have enough evidence that it makes me feel like I'm comfortable with the conclusion, I'll share it. But if I've made a mistake or new evidence comes out, I'll correct it. And that's what I'll do tomorrow. If tomorrow we find out during the day that there is some crazy conspiracy, okay, that's unless there's some reason not to accept it, I'll accept it. And that's all you can do, right? That's all anybody should be doing. But people have too much at stake in this case for some reason. Sean says, what hill are you dying on? He says to me. He goes, I'm going to die on this hill. What hill are you dying on? I'm not dying on any hill. Why should I die on a hill for some case that has no personal meaning to me? I don't know any of these people. So, I mean, just from a very kind of normal human point of view, I'm very bothered when innocent people are smeared. Now, I didn't know that at the beginning. But so, yeah, at this point, I do have a lot of empathy for someone like Colin, a young kid smeared of murder when by all indications, he wasn't in the house when it happened. And, now Sean's smearing Julie Nagel. This young woman, Levinson, same 23-year woman, has been Turtle Boy described as walking over John's body. And half the people where she works, she's a nurse. I guess at least half the people at the hospital are now hostile to her. So this phenomenon here where this mob has been created, it's doing a lot of damage. And it's because people don't ask questions. You hear Sean putting out that theory that Julie called her brother for a ride because John had just been attacked in the house. Nobody on that side, everybody on that side knows that, or should know, right? Because this is like Free Karen Reed 101, that John and Karen arrived at the same time as Nagel in that truck. But nobody questions him on it. And that's how it goes in this case. All I want people to do is start asking questions better, asking more of them, trying to think about this from a both sides kind of way, apply that to everything you do in life, certainly apply it to true crime cases, and we'll all be better off. We'll be better citizens. That's all I want, and be aware that you got people out there that are trying to take advantage of you by purposely giving you information they know isn't true because it's to their benefit. And I don't do that. Before I get off, Jules, I just want to give, because this was very unfair to her. So Jules said, I just rewinded the live and I am completely disgusted by what this person said tonight. and pretended to be me. Let me make this clear. I would never attack Kevin. That person is gross. I 100% believe that's the real Jules, and I apologize to Jules for getting fooled, because I was kind of hurt by it, because I'm thinking, geez, I thought we were kind of friends, and I'm like, why is she attacking me like this? But so it was a successful trick, and it probably got me to say something that I shouldn't have said. So I'm sorry about that. But Jules, I hope you can forgive me for being tricked, and we can just move on with that. I guess I'll give Hillbilly Nitro, who's a good regular, the last word, because he works so hard. This is a long typing. The irony in Turtle Boy. I hadn't read his comment. So the irony in Turtle Boy, a man groveling to the government to grant an imaginary line to supposedly protect him from a woman saying bad things about him on the internet, the same government he calls corrupt. Yeah, I mean, I didn't start following this channel. I'm sorry, I didn't start following Turtle Boy until April. And so I had no idea of the whole history. I just kept hearing him referring to Krusty and all that stuff. And I found it was, and you can ask people on my team that we were working together on this summer on this. I never used that expression. And this is just, it seemed wrong to me to call someone that, so I refused to use it. Even when other people who I was friends with would use it because they were turtle riders and they had heard it, I refused to use it. I didn't know her, didn't know anything about her, had no opinion on her. My first conversations with Kate, she reached out to me maybe late August, early September. And so I'm glad I never used it, because the person I talk to is always is one of the more intelligent people that you'll ever talk to. And, it's, I always enjoy talking to her, and the information or the arguments that she made to me over time. And well, first of all, she helped me get the documents at that time, and I had never had access to documents. So that really was a turning point for me. But then she would make arguments of her beliefs in the case, and on some issues, information that she reported to me, and almost everything turned out to be correct. The only thing that ever was incorrect was maybe about the federal investigation, and that was just, she didn't lie. It was just a mistake. But everything else, her accuracy and her credibility was extremely high, but her sense of the law and her sense of things were extremely intelligent. But also, she does have a conscience, and she has a lot of empathy. And part of what drives her is she has a lot of empathy for the people that have been victims to this mob, and then also to some of Aiden's behavior. And so she has enough difficulties in her own upbringing with her fractured family. For a while, she was, I believe, in a foster home because of it. So she had a lot of difficult stuff that she has grown strong fighting through that, but she's a fighter because of it too. So sometimes she occasionally is more of a fighter than I would want to do in terms. But when you talk to Kate, you have to understand the thing is she actually does care about these people, but she also, as much as she doesn't like Aiden, it's important to her to not want to jeopardize a case. It's in things like that, or trying to be accurate or trying to be fair. Those are all things that are very important to Kate. So that's my experience of Kate. Maybe someone else has a different experience. That's my personal experience of Kate. And you can go to her channel. I don't think she does a show too often, but you can go to her channel and see for yourself. I mean, don't let someone else make up your opinion about her. Go there and make it up for yourself. And if you still have that opinion, all right, that's fine. But go there and make up your own mind. All right, guys. So stayed on longer than I intended, but I will be on tomorrow to stream live, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Or if a lot of people probably have to work, but I will be streaming it. So if you can get an earbud in, and you'll hear the hearing, and I won't be interfering with it at all. And for everybody else, you'll be able to watch it on the replay.